Welcome to the Market Mystics podcast. I'm Joshua.
I'm Kim. Let's dive in.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Market Mystics. Kim, how's it going?
It's going great. Hey, I have a question for you.
Let's hear it.
So we all know about your new puppy.
We
Or
do.
if someone is just tuning in, Josh has had a new puppy for the last month or two-ish.
Yeah.
Does he ever get the Zoomies?
Yes.
Does he?
Especially after bath time.
That's funny. Okay, my oldest dog, when he was younger, that was when he got it most too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He does. So also, we live in a one-bedroom house. And so there's not a lot of room for him to get the Zoomies. But when we take him to my parents' house, their house, it's a bigger house, but it sort of has like a loop you can do. Like all the rooms connect, and so you can go in one big circle. And he will like sprint and sprint and sprint around their house. So yeah, he for sure gets the Zoomies specifically after bath time, but at random times too.
That's so funny. I love it when dogs get the Zoomies. Do you like it or does it annoy you?
I think I feel fairly neutral about it. Like,
No, I love it. I love when they like tuck their behind. I feel like that's
mhm.
indicative of like actually having the Zoomies and not just running. They
Yeah,
like, for some reason, almost have their butt on the ground and
yeah.
run like a wild person. Or
I wonder why they do that. Like, I wonder what genetically, like, is it just pent up energy, or is it like, is there a reason they do that? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know.
I also, so I don't, yeah, we've definitely never talked about this on the podcast. We've been taking our puppy to like a puppy training class, and it was 6 weeks long, 1 day a week. And he would go, and for the first 4 weeks, he would not interact with any of the other dogs. He would go run up to every other parent, every teacher, but he would not interact with the other dogs. And then the teacher was like, okay, well, next week I'm going to try and putting him like with some of the other more calm dogs, because there was a couple dogs who weren't really interacting with the other dogs. And so she just sort of separated like the hyper puppies with the more calm puppies. And it took him probably 5 or so minutes of like still being a little bit hesitant with that, but all of a sudden he started playing with this like probably 8 or 10 week old golden retriever who was just the cutest little puppy.
Mhm.
And they like really started playing together.
Mhm.
And it was like the cutest thing to watch them play. And then just yesterday was his last class. And he just like it was like 30 seconds and then he was warmed up and wanted to go play with all the dogs. And it was
Oh,
like
that's
so
fun.
it was kind of like amazing to see as like the like they're like one of the dogs was like kind of being calm and he would just like go and like get down on his belly in front of them and bark at them till they would go play with him. And it was like kind of fun to just watch the growth of like going from no, I don't want to interact with any of the other puppies to no, like I can totally do this. This is great.
I love that. That's fun.
Yeah. I wanted to like video it because it was super cute, but also there was a bunch of other people and their dogs there. And I'm like, they maybe don't want like video. Like no one else had their phones. And I was like, maybe they don't want videos of their dogs being taken by random people. So I didn't video it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, well, staying on the same topic of Zoomies,
Yeah.
um, and I know that I guess I don't know what will be happening when this episode releases, but another kind of Zoomies that I've been seeing and I'm super encouraged by, and we haven't talked about this for a long time, is crypto has been moving, you guys.
Yeah.
Uh, if you haven't been with us for long, our podcast was like founded on talking about crypto stuff, and it's kind of evolved and swung into way more about our spiritual journey. But there's still like a love for crypto there, and it's been really cool to just see it move. I was telling Josh this morning um, that it's like made big gains and it's really corrected a lot, but we had just a few years of it being really steady and not moving at all. And
Mm.
I'm just really happy to see it zooming even both ways. Like there's movement, and that feels like it's full of life.
Yeah, it's been really fun to watch lately. Uh, so I know that crypto moves generally in 4-year cycles. So like we had a really big push in 2017, a really big push in 2021, and are now starting to see a lot of movement heading into 2025. So it's fun to see that like cycle and pattern, like it bringing life back around to things. But it's fun because it's like I'm seeing things that were just really weird and fun. And like, there's a lot of things that people don't understand about crypto, so they don't want to get involved with it. And so, like, they just don't. But then today I saw this thing on Twitter of this 15-year-old kid who invested $250 on a random, meaningless cryptocurrency. And all of a sudden it started skyrocketing, and he now has $350,000 off a
Whoa.
$250 investment. I do like the other part of myself was like, okay, were there actually people who were interested in buying it? Like, was he able to get out of his position, or does he just have $350,000 worth of a pointless crypto? Like, I don't know that answer. And maybe he didn't sell it. I don't know. But um, things like that are starting to happen again, which was something that was super common in 2021, not very common in 2017 because there just wasn't as many meme coins or alternative coins. That just wasn't quite a thing. And so it's like fun to see things like that happen again. And I know there's a lot of people who don't understand, they don't see the value in it, so they just don't invest in it. But I've always likened it to like baseball cards or Pokemon cards or people who collect shoes or like any even car collections or like any obscure thing. Maybe not cars because cars probably have inherently some value, but like baseball cards and Pokemon cards, they have no value except for the value we determine that they have. And that's very similar to cryptocurrency. Like it, sure, it's not tangible. It doesn't have a um, any type of a value that you could put on it in that way, but it's valuable because we say it's valuable. And that actually is value. And there actually is a lot of, I mean, that's the whole reason anything has value. Like, that's the reason the US dollar has value. If you want to really get down to it, it's because an entire country got together and said, this has value.
And then the
And
rest of
then
the world said, "Oh, I think that has value too."
yeah, exactly. And so it's exactly the same thing. It's just on a scale that we don't necessarily see as often. And so and it's new. And so people are always hesitant to jump into new things. But this is its second cycle, so of like meme and alternative coins. So it's not as new. There should be some familiarity. Which, I hope encourages people to I hope it encourages adoption a little bit more. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that was something we were really big on 4 years ago, or even 3 years ago when we started the podcast, was like mass adoption and the importance of like a bunch of people coming together and saying, yeah, we see value in Bitcoin, we see value in Ethereum. Um, and I just hope that now there's a little bit more adoption, there's a little bit more people on board because it's been seen, like it's been around, it's not as new, it's not quite as Wild West because some people sat and watched it 4 years ago and watched what happened with it.
Yeah. I think I think that is really starting to happen. And I love seeing it. Like, I don't feel like it's as far on the peripherals anymore. I
Hmm.
have not a coworker, like in the building where our office is, a neighbor, is he's a financial advisor. And we had a conversation a couple weeks ago. It was actually right after, I guess it's more than a couple weeks ago. It was right after the election. And we talked about how all the markets just like overnight started moving. And he was talking about stocks. And I was like, oh, I don't have the most experience with stocks, but I really do watch crypto. And he was telling me that, and he is someone who's probably in his mid 60s, and again, a financial advisor. And he was telling me about how he personally invested in a couple of altcoins, um, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and just sat on them and like
Yeah.
watched them move. Like, is it going to do anything? And I think it really is. That to me feels telling because it's someone who is very much focused on the mainstream markets. But crypto's like edging in. Like, it just doesn't feel like it's so far out there anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just continuing to get more publicity. And then you have things like Elon Musk having his, uh, you know, whatever you think about it, but his thing with Donald Trump being called the Department of Government Efficiency, or Doge, which
Doge.
he for sure had it named after the meme, which is also a cryptocurrency. Like that, like there's just things like that that are happening that are bringing it more towards the front. I mean, you always, if you're in any type of business realm, you see Michael Saylor with MicroStrategies constantly talking about buying Bitcoin, buying Bitcoin, buying Bitcoin. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
probably the loudest spokesperson for Bitcoin I have ever seen, um, and runs a very successful large business. um, and so I think it's just more and more people that are seeing it, and there's more and more people who watched random things explode with profitability last cycle that they're more willing to dip their toe in it, which um, I think opens the door for more money to pour into cryptocurrency this year than did in the past 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Which you see that already with Bitcoin hitting all-time highs and many coins hitting all-time highs. Like that just is a sign that more money is pouring in than what has been.
Mm-hmm. You know what else I think helps is that in kind of the downtime when things were not moving well, um, we've seen even firsthand, we've seen um, communities at large starting to adopt it as a viable currency, a viable way of having peer-to-peer transactions.
Mm,
And though it's not as like out front in the US like that, I think what's been out front in the US has been the SEC trying to sue every crypto they can get their hands on. Um, but in other countries, like we're seeing it being adopted and used on the daily. And
mhm.
it's not strange. It just is another option. It's like, are you using Visa, MasterCard, or Bitcoin? You
Right.
choose. And I think there's some of that going on that is adding to the stability and viability of it. While the people who have been unsure are like wanting to sit by and watch and see like how is it moving from in these 4 year cycles. They may not even know they're waiting for the 4 year cycle, but I think they are. um and now you start seeing it move again and there's a little more trust put in it, but again there have been people who are working with it and building that foundation so it's even more solid in how it can be used.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, we talked about this a lot early on in the podcast, but like legitimacy was really needed in the cryptocurrency space. And legitimacy comes with more people using it. And not just peer to peer, but more businesses, more government entities. The larger the adoption, the more legitimacy it has, the more years it has under its belt, the more legitimate it is. Because I mean, crypto scams were a huge thing. And
Mhm.
I very much so think they probably will be again, because where there's opportunity, there will be people trying to take advantage of that opportunity. So I just think that will be a thing that we have to be aware of and pay attention to. But yeah, with more people being involved, with bigger things being involved with it, um, it creates more legitimacy and to some extent makes it harder for some scams to exist because there's just more eyes on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I'm involved in something else, and I've heard a couple people um, recently talk about how they got like massive rug pull with some of the crypto scams that were out there,
Mm,
and how devastating it was for them and their family, and even their, I don't know, image, but like how people saw them as being trustworthy, because they believed something, and then because they believed it, they told other people about it, and they trusted them, and then
mhm.
everything fell apart. But you know what? With things moving again, I think you're absolutely right. There's more opportunity and more probability of some of those coming out again. But I think the really easy way of avoiding it is knowing that it is a market, and no one can guarantee you this amount of gains over this amount of time. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like that just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So if someone's trying to sell you something like that, go check it. Like you have the
Do your
little
own
discernment
research.
buzzer going off, like
Yeah.
pay attention to it, do your own research, and know that uh, there's no program in the world that could guarantee those returns unless someone's just willing to give away free money, which in my experience isn't really likely.
It's generally pretty rare. Yeah. I mean, there's people who make educated guesses on future price action, but it's a guess and it wouldn't be a market if it wasn't a guess. Like if there wasn't people on both sides uh pushing the price one way or the other, it wouldn't be a market. And if there and also if there wasn't people doing that, there would be no opportunity for you to make money. So
Right.
like that's when I think about some of that, I'm like, yeah, that's what cryptocurrency is offering, at least at this moment, is an opportunity to make money because there's a market for it and it's a volatile market. And so you can make money, you can also lose money.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Mm.
regardless of that, I'm really happy to see it moving. The motion feels, uh, I don't know, important telling. You know
Mhm.
how a few weeks ago we did an episode called Energy in Motion? I
Yeah.
feel like that's what's happening. Remember how okay, so like after the election, we talked about how there's like this palpable relief, just kind of that it was over, right? All
Hmm.
of a sudden, like all of this tension that had been building up had some sort of a release. And I
Yeah.
think this is what we're starting to see both in traditional markets and in crypto markets. It's just one outworking of that. But
Mm.
now all of a sudden things are moving. Like that energy that has gotten pent up is starting to move. I'm seeing it in other areas. Um, and it's interesting to see. And I think if you're not open to pay attention to like notice patterns or see when things are repeating themselves or things aligning, you might miss it. But it's been cool to see.
Yeah. It's very fun to watch. And uh yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll bring it up again from time to time because it definitely is something we are passionate about. And it is how this podcast got started. So who knows? Maybe we will talk more about that in the future. But it is so much fun to be a part of. We're both still very passionate about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. Um, yeah, I was gonna say it's something we used to talk about a lot and something we're very passionate about. Hence the market and our mystics.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. If you go back to any of season one episodes, that's we start every single episode with a market update talking about which cryptocurrencies are moving, either the biggest gainers or the biggest losers. So, yeah, that definitely is part of who we are. It's much like crypto had ebbs and flows we have in our podcast in what we've talked about. So
Yeah.
it's fun to see some things get brought back around.
Yeah, for sure. Before we wrap this up, I would say that if you're listening and you have no idea about cryptocurrency, but you're kind of curious, um, I would say we have an episode called Hermeneutics with a friend of ours who's really involved in the global Bitcoin community, I would say.
Mhm.
That's probably a good way to say that, right?
Yeah.
But also really integral in getting it rolled out in communities and actively being used in a very practical way. And I think that conversation would be a great place to start just to learn about what it's capable of,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Nope. That's a great idea. And leave a comment. If you have any questions, leave a comment, join our Discord, reach out there. Uh we're happy to share the knowledge we have gained through trial and error and successes and failures.
Hey, guess what? There's been failures.
Yeah, for sure. But that just helps us. I think that helps just do better in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, this has been a fun Zoomies talk.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. It started with puppies, it ended with Doge. It's kind of stayed on
Like
line of
full
dogs the
circle.
whole circle.
Oh, I love it. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.
Hey, thanks for listening. Keep up with us along this journey by liking, subscribing, and becoming a member through YouTube.
Members get exclusive access to bonus content with our guests, deeper dives into topics, and a look into other projects. We're glad to have you here. See you next time.